Hare Krishna. I'd like to welcome all of you all to our Applied Bhagavatam classes. We are on chapter 9 of the first canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, and this particular chapter is on Bhishma Dev's passing away. So this particular chapter of Srimad Bhagavatam is considered to be a very, very important and defining chapter of the Bhagavatam because this is very instructive, and at the same time this is about one of those personalities who is a very special character in the Srimad Bhagavatam. And imagine somebody being chosen by Krishna for a particular task, how important that person will be. So the context of this story is that Yudhishthir Maharaj was very, very sad and very disappointed after the war. So the Pandavas had won the war and Yudhishthir was made the king of the world. And after winning the war, usually somebody who has won such a massive war and is the king of the world will be very happy. But on the other hand, Yudhishthir, instead of being happy, he was very sad and dejected, very disappointed. And that is the context of this story. So Yudhishthir became so dejected and disappointed that Lord Krishna personally came and advised him. So before the war got over, Krishna advised Arjun when he was dejected and disappointed. And that's what we know as Gita, right? And after hearing the whole Gita, Arjun became very inspired and he won the war. But after fighting the war, Yudhishthir became dejected and disappointed. And the same Krishna gave him knowledge. But nothing happened. Yudhishthir continued remaining dejected and disappointed. Now you might wonder, what is this? How can Krishna's Gita become irrelevant? How can Krishna's knowledge become, not effective? The understanding is, Krishna made his knowledge not so effective. Krishna wanted that Yudhishthir doesn't get pacified by his gyan. Why? So that the credit of actually helping Yudhishthir goes to Bhishma. He wanted his devotee to get this credit of inspiring Yudhishthir. See, every time if Krishna only gets the credit, then what's the fun, isn't it? So there should be some time when Krishna can't do something. And that is done by somebody else, and that person gets even bigger credit, right? So the last phase of Bhishma's life, he lived a very glorious life. The last phase of Bhishma's life, Krishna wanted to give him this gift. And Krishna took the Pandavas, headed by Yudhishthir Maharaj, the four brothers, Draupadi, and all of them to meet Bhishma Pitama. Bhishma Pitama was lying on this bed of arrows and he was waiting for the Uttarayan to come. So he had fallen many, many days back, but he was waiting for the sun to enter into the northern hemisphere. So it was like there are two phases of the sun. There is Dakshinayan and there is Uttarayan. It is, if you read the Bhagavad Gita 8th chapter, Krishna says in the 8th chapter of the Gita, those who die in the Dakshinayan period, when the sun is in the southern hemisphere, they come back into this world. And those who die in the Uttarayan period, when sun is in the northern hemisphere, they never return into this world. So Bhishma, being a yogi and also being blessed by his father Shantanu Maharaj for the sacrifice that he did of taking this Bhishma Pratigya, Shantanu Maharaj gifted him the blessing of Ichha Mrityu. He could die when he wants. Imagine what a power to have. And Bhishma was waiting for the Uttarayan period to come, the sun to enter the northern hemisphere so that he can leave this body. But before the sun enters into the northern hemisphere, Lord Krishna comes with the Pandavas. And Krishna makes sure that Yudhishthir Maharaj is gorgeously dressed like a king. Usually when you go to a crematorium or a burial ground or some kind of a shok sabha, you go in simple clothes, isn't it? You go in the minimal. You obviously don't wear flashy stuff and things like that. But here, Krishna insisted that Yudhishthir wear the most gorgeous dress. This is probably the only funeral in the entire world where people went opulently dressed. There's a reason behind that. I'll explain that towards the end of the session. So Krishna took all of them. And when Krishna and the Pandavas went, along with them suddenly appeared some of the most illustrious sages in the universe. Vyasa, Narada, Asita, Devala, some of the most powerful people in the universe appeared together at the same time. Shukadev. I mean, these are all exalted people. They are not ordinary people. Each one of them have like fantastic histories of their own. And imagine such powerful people coming together in one place. There must be some reason, isn't it? There was something great going on because of which such powerful people giving up all their other tasks and important activities, they're coming over here. By the kind of people that come in your funeral, you know what kind of life you have lived. If nobody comes, you know that you really lived a life where you have not touched anybody's heart. And if your own relatives don't come, then you can imagine, that how much you have been able to, connect with people. But imagine if thousands of people come, and not just ordinary thousands of people, some of the most illustrious people of the universe are coming. Krishna himself is coming. What kind of a life he must have lived, and what kind of a person he must be, isn't it? So at least from this one story we can learn, live your life in such a way that at least some good people come to your funeral. Yeah. Don't live your life in such a way that nobody wants to come there only and nobody has time for you, right? So that is the kind of impact that you have to live in this world while we are living over here. And that shows at the time of your death, at the time of your departure. So, Krishna, also one of the reasons why Krishna did this is because this is the time of Krishna's winding up his pastimes. Krishna's lived a fabulously long life. He has done everything that needs to be done to re-establish Dharma. But now it is time for him to depart, go back to the spiritual world. But before he goes back to the spiritual world, Krishna wanted to set one very important precedent. It's like setting a standard for the future. When Krishna is not available and you need advice, whom do you go to? If Krishna is not available and you need advice, the Mahajans are there, the great devotees are there. So Krishna wanted to make sure that fact is conveyed very nicely. That means when Krishna is not going to be there in this world, in our lives, Krishna is not exactly there, isn't it? He's not performing his pastimes here. So now, whom do we go to? Find some Mahajans and go to them and seek advice. So this is another very powerful fact that Krishna wanted to establish. So today, what I'm going to do essentially is, I'm going to tell you all 6 things that Bhishma is conveying through his last discourse. This is the last time Bhishma is going to speak in this world. And there are 6 things a dying man is sharing to the world. Now if somebody, so like say for example, if you have to tell yourself how to live life, the best time you can give advice to yourself is when you're on your deathbed. Right? Because you've lived your whole life and now you know all the mistakes you've made and all the ways how not to live life. Now you can very proudly give a very good advice to yourself how you should live life. But unfortunately that's too late, right? What's the use of advice of to yourself when you're dying? And therefore Bhishma's advice is very important. Here is a man who has lived a fabulously long life. He has Ichcha Mrityu and he can decide when to die. And such a person is giving us advice on his final moments. So from whatever I have understood and studied and my analysis of the Srimad Bhagavatam verses, I have found 6 things that Bhishma is trying to convey to the world. So if a person on the deathbed has to give you, these are 6 powerful advices that every one of us should know at this time in our life. Whatever age you are, at this point in time in your life, if you have these 6 things that Bhishma is trying to convey, life will be much better. So let us try to understand the 6 things that Bhishma is trying to convey through the verses of Bhishma. This is verse number 14. Sarvam kala kritam manye bhavatam cha yad apriyam sapalo yad vashe loke vayoriva ghanavali. So, when Bhishma sees Yudhishthira Maharaj, the Pandavas, dressed opulently, and they come in front of him with Kunti, with Draupadi, Bhishma is going through a lot of emotional turmoil. And in his emotional turmoil, Bhishma begins to speak. The first thing Bhishma he begins with, he says, "Oh no, what kind of painful life you have lived." He begins like that. Aho kashtam, he begins like that. What kind of kashta you have undergone? This is not the first verse. This is the third or fourth verse, basically. This is like a much later verse. So, Bhishma says, what kind of painful life you all have lived? And he's feeling very sad for the Pandavas. He said, you have gone through too much in your life. At this age, what you all have gone through is a lot. By the way, at this point in time, Yudhishthira Maharaj was probably 90 plus. He's already that old. So Bhishma is saying, at this age, what kind of pain you all have gone through? I mean, would you say that to a 90-year-old man? He's like already so old, isn't it? But from Bhishma's point of view, Yudhishthira Maharaj is a kid. Because Bhishma is like, hundreds of years old, right? He's he's like two generations. His Pitama is grandfather of Yudhishthira. So he's already two generations he's lived, Bhishma. So then he's seeing the kind of pain that these people have. And then Bhishma begins to analyze all the pains they have gone through. And he says, my daughter-in-law Kunti, what she has gone through. And then he says, he speaks this verse. Very beautiful verse, which is a conclusion of his analysis of all that the Pandavas have gone through. See, the Pandavas are great devotees of the Lord. They are not ordinary people, right? They are great devotees of the Lord. They are very knowledgeable people. They are very capable people. They are very powerful people. They are close friends of Krishna. Krishna is their cousin brother. So practically everything good is happening in their lives. But yet they went through so much pain and tribulations. So Bhishma, his conclusion is, I don't think you'll have done any bad karma. Can you find any bad karma that Pandavas have done because of this, which they are suffering? So Bhishma says, in my opinion, after I have analyzed your life and seen everything that you have gone through, he says, in my opinion, this is all due to inevitable time, under whose control everyone in every planet is carried, just as the clouds are carried by the wind. So Bhishma's conclusion is that sometimes what happens to us, we may not exactly know why it is happening to us. We may not exactly understand why we are going through such pains, why we are going through such difficulties. Whenever anyone goes through any kind of pains and tribulations and they call me, one of the things they ask me is, why am I going through this? And the funny thing is that somehow everyone feels I don't deserve this. Somehow everyone feels that this should not happen to me, isn't it? That's the nature of this world. And so here Bhishma is saying, he's telling the Pandavas, this should not happen to you, but it's still happening. Which means this is due to something beyond karma. This is inevitable time, kala. When a human being is born, the Srimad Bhagavatam calls the person, the living entity that is born, as Jantu. So Jantu means it's a thing, So imagine if somebody calls you Jantu, it feels really odd, right? Tum Jantu ho, My God, how bad it feels. It feels like a big, slap or a dirty word, right? So the Srimad Bhagavatam says all of us are born Jantus. And the Mahabharata goes one level further. The Mahabharata says, when a sibling is born, the child thinks my enemy is born. Of course, for a lot of people after adulthood also they feel my enemy only is there. so, so basically, when a person is born, we are all jantus, which means that we are insensitive people, we are selfish people, we're very, very self-centered people. When a person grows slowly, that person reaches a particular point. So usually if you've seen small babies, when they're born, they're grabbing everything, isn't it? You give them a hand, they'll grab your hand also. You give them food, they'll grab food also. Whatever they get, they grab. And they want to put in their mouth, right? This is Jantu stage. The Jantu stage is thinking of how to take everything from the world. Someday, we will reach a point where we extend our hand and feed our mother. That day is an evolution in your life. From Jantu, you become a Jiva. From Jantu, you become a Jiva. The day you say, till that time you're only taking from your mother. One day you think, Arey, she's giving me so much, let me feed her. It's a big, big day in your life. It marks the evolution from a Jantu to a Jiva. Jiva learns the art of cooperation. And when the Jiva goes ahead and learns the Atma Tattva, the understanding of the physical body, we are Atmas. That time, the Jiva reaches a stage which is known as the Atma Tattva stage. And this is a stage where the Jiva actually becomes a little more mature. Of course, from the Atma Tattva stage, we need to reach a stage which is known as Vaikunta Chetana. It's a long distance away. Vaikunta Chetana is a stage where we have no envy towards others. Vaikunta Chetana is a stage where we don't feel, insecure, where we don't feel threatened by anybody. We can love everybody. It's a very evolved stage. So from Jantu, we have to reach the stage of Vaikunta Chetana. That's what life is about. And all the stages in between. So when you are on the path of yoga, in the path of yoga, the idea is that you focus on the journey. Destination is a component of the journey. Moksha, a spiritual world, is our destination, right? But according to the scriptures, while we are on the path of Krishna consciousness, there is a component of moksha in the path itself, in the journey itself. So typically normal material journeys, unless you reach the destination, you can't say I've reached, isn't it? Unless you reached, like say for example, you're going on a holiday to Spain. Unless you actually land in Spain, you can't say I've reached, isn't it? But that's not how the spiritual world works. We all want to go to the spiritual world. We want to go to Golok Vrindavan. But from when we begin the journey towards Golok Vrindavan, in the journey itself, there is a component of the destination. That's how spiritual life is very different. So Vaikunta Chetana, it does not happen by human endeavor only. For Vaikunta Chetana, we need the Karuna of Godhead. We need the grace of Krishna. So, in the Srimad Bhagavatam, Narad Muni makes a very beautiful statement, which I thought is very important to discuss at this point when Bhishma is speaking about, time as such an important component of our life. Narad Muni says that since the material body is sure to be vanquished and the duration of one's life is not fixed, neither death nor life is to be praised. Listen to this statement very carefully. This is a very radical verse of the Srimad Bhagavatam. So he says, neither death nor life is to be praised. Rather, one should observe the eternal time factor in which the living entity manifests himself and disappears. So here, in this purport, in this particular verse, why I'm telling all this verse, let me explain. The reason I am telling this verse is because in ISKCON, when we preach to people that we should become serious about spiritual life, one of the ways in which we inspire people to become serious about spiritual life is by telling them, you will die soon. Death is inevitable. Very soon you're going to die. We kind of scare them and then we inspire them, right? I remember in my initial days of Krishna consciousness, there was so much fear induced in people, and for them to take up spiritual life seriously, like a intensely fear-based preaching. So we shouldn't give impetus to people based on death. The real impetus should be yoga. The real impetus, so basically what happens is, when you start telling people you should do this because of this, then people start giving importance to something else. Like if you tell somebody, if a small child is told by his father, I'll give you a cycle if you study. What is more important? Study or cycle? Isn't it? So naturally the person gives more importance to the cycle. So if you tell people you should practice Krishna consciousness because otherwise, death is going to come, you are giving more importance to death than to Krishna consciousness. The impetus to practice spiritual life cannot be death. It should be yoga. It should be connection with God, right? That should be the impetus to practice spiritual life. So therefore, people like Lord Shiva, if you look at Lord Shiva's life, where does Lord Shiva stay? He stays in a crematorium. Why does Lord Shiva stay in a crematorium? To teach us, you don't need to stay only in a temple to go back to the spiritual world. You can stay in a crematorium also and go back to God. Dhruva Maharaj stepped on death and climbed on the Vaikuntha plane. Which means that the idea is that, so look at over here, Bhishma Dev, when he's trying to say that time is very powerful. What he's trying to tell us is that don't give so much importance to all the aspects of life that make you paranoid. So there are so many things that will happen in our life that makes us paranoid, right? There are so many events that happen in our life that cause pain to us, that cause us to become fearful, paranoid, etc. So he's saying that give importance to Vishnu. Don't be paranoid with death. Don't be paranoid by any other factor. Understand that time, Kala, is Krishna only. Is a component of Krishna. Kalosmi Bharata Sharbha, Krishna says in the Gita, I am time. So Bhishma Dev is first talking about how it is so critical to focus on the right thing and take away your mind from the wrong thing. So Bhishma Dev began by telling the Pandavas that you went through so much pain, and then he says you went through so much pain. It's not your fault. It's not your karma. But the only thing I can think of it is time that has given you all this. You experience all this due to Kala, and then slowly he brings from time to Krishna. In the next verse, we'll find that slowly Bhishma is bringing the transition. So he talks about something that is vague, and then he brings it to something that is very defined. So let's chant the next verse. This is verse number 22. Tatapi ekanta bhakteshu pasya bhupanukampitam yanme sumtyajata sakshat Krishno darshanamagata. So Bhishma says, what you have experienced is because of time. And then he says, time is Krishna only. He says, you are so lucky that Krishna has been a part of your journey. You have gone through so much, but Krishna has been a constant factor in your life. He has been a part of your whole journey. And then he says, look how lucky I am. He says, despite of his being equally kind to everyone, he has graciously come before me while I am ending my life, for I am his unflinching servitor. So what Bhishma is trying to convey to us is that if there is anyone in this world who will stand by you, even if you have made many mistakes, that is Krishna. Be grateful to him. Why is he telling like this? Because he has made so many mistakes in his life. Bhishma's life is filled with so many mistakes, isn't it? The first biggest mistake is that he stood against Krishna in the war. What can be a bigger mistake than that? He stood on the side of the Kauravas. So he has made many mistakes in his life. So Bhishma is saying, in spite of me making so many mistakes in my life, Krishna stood next to me. And look at this. At the time of my death, he's come. He's come here. So the first thing that Bhishma tells us, or rather, the first thing that Bhishma is telling us to remember is time is powerful, respect it, whether it's giving you good or it's giving you bad, because time ultimately is Krishna. So first of all, the first thing that we can learn from this story of Bhishma Dev is, let us be conscious of the time that we have in our hand and understand that whatever plans we make, it may not exactly be in alignment with what actually happens. And if you don't understand why things are happening to us the way they are happening to us, remember, there is something called time, Kala, that is in control of all our lives. And that Kala is in the hand of Krishna. So if you are affected by time and you're not able to handle how time functions, then go to the second one. If there's anyone in this world who will actually stand by you, no matter what, no matter how many mistakes you make, no matter how many times you falter, Krishna will always be there. Be grateful to him. So here in this particular verse, Bhishma is trying to tell us and tell the Pandavas, don't consider Krishna to be an ordinary person. He is not your cousin brother. He is not your friend. He is not your relative. He is someone who can change your destiny. And therefore, one of the names of Krishna, he is known as Vishwayoni. The meaning of the word Vishwayoni, so the word Vishwa means the world, obviously. And the word Yoni means the cause of this world. But the word Vishwayoni is something much more beyond just this particular definition. I'm going to tell you all a story to help us understand how Krishna influences us and how Krishna can actually change our destiny. There is a beautiful story from a place known as Tiruvalliputtur. So in this place, there was a young boy whose name was Devanathan. And this boy was studying in a Gurukul. He was studying Sanskrit in a Gurukul. He was in a Veda Patishala, studying Vedas, studying Sanskrit. And so in Veda Patishalas, the way Sanskrit and the Vedas is taught is by rote memory. You have to keep reciting, and then you learn like that. Now this guy, this young boy, he was not able to hold the Vedas. He was not able to remember anything, basically. And his gurus, they took private tuitions for him. They took separate classes for him, trying to somehow or other fit something into his brain, No matter how much they tried, they just couldn't get him to understand and learn the Vedas and remember anything. Finally, his guru told him, see, I don't think in your head Veda study is written. He said, things are written in your destiny, right? So he said, the guru said, I don't think in your head Brahma is written that you can study the Vedas. He said, it is better that you leave from the Gurukul. They removed him from the Gurukul. They expelled him. So this boy, Devanathan, was very, very dejected, very disappointed, very sad, very heartbroken. He went to a hill close by. And this hill was named as Aushadadri. And on this hill, there was a temple of Lord Hayagriva. So he went and he sat on the courtyard of the temple, and he was crying. And he was just mumbling to himself. He was just saying, is there no one that can change my destiny? Is there no one who can change what is written on my forehead? He was just like mumbling loudly to himself. At that time, as he was mumbling, Vedanta Desikan, he happened to be taking pradakshina of the Hayagriva temple. So as he was, doing pradakshina, he saw this young boy. You can come here. So Vedanta Desikan, he just overheard this boy mumbling. And he went and asked him, what happened? Why are you saying like this? And this boy, he told him his entire story. And this boy told him, it looks like my guru told me that Brahma has, practically written on my forehead that Vedic studies is not meant for me. This is what my guru has told me. Vedanta Desikana said, not a big deal. We can change your destiny. The boy said, what? Really? You can change my destiny? You can change what is written on my forehead? Vedanta Desikana said, yes, of course. Just come with me. And he said, Brahma writes your destiny on your forehead. But the one who created Brahma is Lord Narayan. So he said, there is the one person who can change what Brahma has written is Lord Narayan. And he took this boy to the altar of Hayagriva. And in front of the altar of Hayagriva, Vedanta Desikar chanted the Hayagriva Stotram. And in the Hayagriva Stotram, there is one sentence which says exactly this. So Vedanta Desikar, he offered the prayer and he said, Vilupta Murdanya Lipikramanam Surendra Chuda Padalalitanam Tavangri Rajiva Raja Kananam Bhuyan Prasado Mainata Bhuyat. This verse means that Brahma writes on our forehead something known as Brahma Lipi. Lipikramanam. Brahma Lipi is a particular type of font or a way in which Brahma writes on our forehead. It is said all our skull or our foreheads are written with many words, basically. Many things written on our foreheads, basically. So it says that Brahma is written using the Brahma Lipi on our forehead when the person is born. But someone who takes the dust from the feet of Hayagriva on his head, the dust has the power to change the destiny that Brahma himself has written. So like this, Vedanta Desikar offers prayers to Hayagriva. Exactly when Vedanta Desikar is offering these prayers to Hayagriva, the Pujari comes out from the altar with the Shatari of Hayagriva. And he puts the Shatari on this boy's head. As Shatari has the lotus feet of the Lord. He puts the Shatari on this boy's head. And so basically every time the Shatari is put on your head, your destiny is changing, basically. So whenever you come to the temple, make sure that you receive the Shatari on your head. Or whenever they are offering Shataris, please make sure you take the Shatari on your head, because some kind of rewording of your destiny will happen. So Vedanta Desikar told this boy, if you have full faith in this verse which we just chanted, your destiny will change. And Vedanta Desikar told this boy, go back to your Gurukul. So this boy went back to the Gurukul. And when this boy went and stood outside the Gurukul, the Guru saw him. And the Guru said, there is some kind of tejas in this boy's face. He said, come in. I am sorry I was too harsh. He sent you away. He said, come in. We will try again. So the next day morning, they started teaching the Veda mantras. And in one shot, this boy learned everything. And the Gurus were shocked. The guy was not able to retain anything at all. And we thought this fellow has no destiny of learning the Vedas. This guy is able to learn everything. He's become literally a Shrutidhar. And that's when the Guru realized the Supreme Lord, Hayagriva, actually has the power to change what is written in our destiny. Therefore, the Lord is called Vishwayoni. That means the one who created Brahma. That is one meaning of the word Vishwayoni. But the other meaning of the word Vishwayoni means that the one who can change what Brahma has written. That's what Vishwayoni means. So Bhishma Dev is telling the Pandavas that you have been influenced by time factor and so many things have gone wrong in your life. But remember, the person who is writing all destinies is standing next to you. Don't take him for granted. Always be grateful to him, because he is the one who can actually change your destinies. So all of us in our lives, we should always remember that whenever we are going through situations in our life, we feel that this is not destined for me. Or whenever we feel that I can't do this, I'm not meant to do this. Remember that Krishna is there with you, and with Krishna in your side, you can do anything. And we need to be grateful to that person who is standing next to us like that. like a rock. All your relatives, friends, family, everybody will come and go. But this one person will not go anywhere, and that's Krishna. Even if you make 100 mistakes, people will abandon you. Your friends will abandon you. Your family will abandon you. Everyone will abandon you. But this one person who will not abandon you is Krishna. The third thing that Bhishma Dev teaches is something wonderful. So I'm going to share, we're going to chant one verse and then I'll explain. This verse is actually loaded with a lot. Verse number 27. Dana dharmam raja dharman moksha dharman vibhagashaha stri dharman bhagavad dharman samasa vyasa yogataha. So Bhishma explained different things. Dana dharma means acts of charity, how to do dana. Raj dharma, the activities of a king, what the king is supposed to do. Stri dharma, moksha dharma, what one needs to do to perfect one's life. And then stri dharma, the duties of a woman. And Bhagavad dharma, the duties of a devotee. And he says, all this Bhishma explained in short and in length. And then there's another verse where which says that Bhishma explained all these things in great detail. He explained thousands of topics in great detail. So there's a verse that says thousands of topics. And then after explaining all these thousands of topics, Bhishma became silent. That's what this verse concludes with. Okay. So now, what I'm going to do is, obviously now, if I start describing whatever Bhishma told Yudhishthir, we will not have time for, even if you do this for months together. There is so much. There's an entire section of the Mahabharata called Bhishma Parva, Shanti Parva, which is where Bhishma is actually giving this instruction to Yudhishthira Maharaj. The Shanti Parva is probably one of the longest sections of the Mahabharata. Elaborate details. I am probably, maybe in a year or so, I'm going to write a book on Bhishma, where I'm going to describe so many details of Shanti Parva in great detail. So at that point, when we do that, we'll probably, get into details. But today, I'm going to give you all some samples. I'm going to tell you two things that Bhishma specifically told. Can someone please decrease the AC? Everyone is suffering too much, So, we're going to see two things that Bhishma specifically taught the Pandavas. One is how to live in this world. And second, how to leave this world. And in the first section, how to live in this world, I'm going to tell you all 3 or 4 stories that Bhishma tells Yudhishthira Maharaj. Fantastic stories. Absolutely amazing stories. And I can bet you would have not heard even one of them. All of the Mahabharata. And I'm only telling you like a tip of the iceberg of what Bhishma shared with Yudhishthira Maharaj, right? And the wisdom that Bhishma is sharing is so amazing and so practical, so down to earth. Anyone can apply it no matter what age, what situation of life you are in, what consciousness you are in, what level of consciousness you are in. It's just fantastic. And after this, after I tell you all these 4 stories that I'm going to share with you all, which is about how to live in this world, I'm going to tell you something that Bhishma spoke, how to leave this world, right? So let's start with the first. So first, Bhishma talks about some amazing practical tips for living in this world. The first story is this. Yudhishthira Maharaj asked Bhishma, how should a king act? And Bhishma told him, let me tell you a story of a lazy camel. And he tells a story of how a king should not act. And from the story of how the king should not act, you figure out how to act. So Bhishma says there was a camel that was very lazy. And but this camel was he was a great tapasvi. He had memories of his past births and all. And he did a lot of tapasya in the forest. And at the end of his tapasya, Lord Brahma appeared in front of him. Brahma was very pleased with this camel. And he asked this camel, ask for any boon. So the camel said, please give me this one boon. By your mercy, my neck should be very long. And it should become hundreds of yojanas, however long I want it, so that I can sit here and go and eat grass anywhere else. Brahma said, fine, take. And this camel sitting in one place, his head only was moving around, all directions. His head would become miles, hundreds of miles long and eat grass. Then imagine a camel's head coming inside, and eating prasad over here and going over. This camel was freaking out. He was like enjoying life, sitting in one place. His head is moving around all directions. So one day, this camel, there was like heavy rains. It started raining very heavily. And because imagine his head was moving in all directions. So his head went into a place where there was heavy rainfall going on. Like right now here, heavy rainfall may be going on, but somewhere else maybe there's no rain, right? So camel was sitting in a place where there was no rain, but his head reached a place where there was heavy rainfall. So to take shelter in this heavy rainfall, he put his head inside a cave to just protect himself from the rainfall. So inside that cave, while this camel's head was resting, a jackal entered the cave with his wife and kids. And this jackal, he was very hungry, he was feeling cold, and he was very, very, exhausted. And he saw this neck of a camel over there, And this jackal, in extreme hunger and distress, he began to bite on the head of the camel. And the camel tried to pull the head away, just to try to save his own life. But somehow the jackal, obviously, he had a greater power over there. He caught the head of the camel and he ate up the head of the camel. And that is how the camel died. So Bhishma, he tells this story to Yudhishthira Maharaj. And he says, this is the result of a lazy person. So that means if you act lazy in your life, that means if you want success with shortcut, this is what happens. Your life gets cut. Your life gets cut short, basically. So if anyone in this world wants to achieve some great things in life, the first thing one must give up is laziness. Stop being lazy. So just by seeing on Instagram how successful others have become, you are not going to become successful. Just by hearing motivational lectures on YouTube, you are not going to become motivated. You have to get up and go and work. There is no replacement to hard work. There is no replacement to effort. And if you think that quickly I will become successful, you will become like this camel. This is the first story. The second story is another very beautiful story. So, Yudhishthira Maharaj asked Bhishma how a king who has obtained a precious kingdom but is devoid of the means to fight, how can he survive against an enemy who is very powerful? So this is Yudhishthira's question. So how to survive against an enemy who is very powerful? And Bhishma says, let me tell you another story. And he tells a beautiful story of a conversation between a river and an ocean. The ocean asks the river a question. He says, my dear river, and he was talking to the Ganga basically. He was saying, my dear Ganga, with your water, so many things come. I've seen trees coming with your water. I've seen big logs of wood coming in your water. But I never seen canes coming in your water. Though canes on the banks of your river. Bamboos, right? They grow right on the bank of the river. So the ocean said, how come the canes who are right on the bank of the river, they don't flow in your waters, but big trees with big branches, they come into the ocean, flowing through the river. And the river said something amazing. The river said, the reason the canes don't come is because they know how to bend. When these big trees, and the river hits the big trees, they don't bend. They just stand there like that. But the canes, the moment a river comes, water comes and hits them, they bend. And because they bend, they're very flexible. They're not washed away. But these big, big trees with big, big branches and all, they are not flexible. They are so sturdily standing over there, they get blown away. And Bhishma tells this story to Yudhishthira Maharaj. And he says, if you are facing an enemy who's powerful, the best thing that you can do is wait. Bend down and wait. Be patient. Be a little smart. Be a little... See, basically, all of us in our lives, we'll come across a situation, we'll come across points where we are stuck. We're facing something very powerful, but we feel that we are powerless against it. We feel that we are facing enemies, like people go through office politics, right? This is a very apt story for all such situations. At homes, people go through so much of chaos, dealing with people who are very difficult to deal with. Bhishma's advice over here is that whenever you come across such situations in life, learn to be humble and bend down. Apna time aayega. Wait for the right time to come to rise. If you keep trying to stand, strong during, chaotic times in life, you will get blown away. Like these trees and big, big branches. That time, bend down. Be flexible. People will think, what is this? It was bending down. It's okay, let them think. Learn to be flexible with the canes. And then there will be a time when it is conducive. Then stand up. Amazing, isn't it? What an advice. Bhishma teaches Yudhishthira a very beautiful and a very powerful thing through a story. And this section of the Shanti Parva is called as Apadharma. Apadharma Parva. So, which means that how do you deal with emergencies in life? So Bhishma tells the story of 3 fishes. And he says, these 3 fishes, they were in a lake. And the lake was being drawn. There was some people that were draining the lake away. And there were some fishermen there collecting the fishes. So these 3 fishes were best friends. So 3 fishes got together and had a meeting. One fish tells the other 2 fishes, better we escape now only. I am seeing that the water level of the lake is coming down and they're draining the water. Better we escape now when we have the chance to escape. The other 2 fishes told this fish, don't worry, we'll figure it out when the time comes. So this first fish escaped the right time only. He just escaped. The other 2 fishes, they got caught. But one of the 2 was a very smart fish. So what it did was, it bit on the net of the fisherman with its teeth and acted as if it is caught. But he was not caught actually. He was just holding the net of the fisherman. And so the fisherman thought this fish is caught and is dead, basically. The fisherman took it out and it washed it in the lake. And the moment the fisherman was washing the fish, this fish escaped, and saved its life. The third fish had no plan only. It died. So Bhishma tells Yudhishthira Maharaj, you can be like one of these 3 fishes. Either you have foresight, that before a calamity comes, before an emergency comes, you understand it and escape. Or you should be smart. When the emergency comes, you should know exactly how to plan and escape. Otherwise, the third thing is like the third fish. If you are not smart and if you don't have foresight, you will die. This is the advice of Bhishma on how to deal with crisis. So basically, those who have the ability to plan for the future and those who have presence of mind, they both can prosper in life. But those who have neither the ability to plan for the future nor presence of mind, they will only die. They will perish. They will not be able to be successful in life. The last story I'm going to share with you all is one of the most amazing stories I've come across in the Mahabharata. It's brilliant. This story is about uh, um, it's it's something that on the principle of gratitude. So Bhishma, he is telling Yudhishthira Maharaj about a Brahmana named Gautam. So this Brahman, he lived in a village, but unfortunately he didn't have much livelihood. So he would go around begging, and then somehow in his village there was not much. So he went to another village, little far away, to beg for charity. And he knocked on the house of one man. This Brahmana Gautam didn't realize something, that this village in which he went to was a village filled with robbers. Every house in the village was a robber's house only. Safest village to live in. Everybody is robber there. So they all go collectively together out and rob people, and they come back and they're very nice people in the village, basically. So this Brahmana Gautam, he went and knocked on the door of one person, and that person happened to be the chief of the robbers. And this this chief of the robbers saw this Brahmana Gautam come. He felt little compassion. He asked him, "See, why are you begging and all?" He said, "Just come and join us. We will train you up. You will never have to beg in your life." And he didn't know what he was getting into. He said, "Fine." And they gave him a house close by. They eventually got him married also, and he became a part of their gang. And he became a big dacoit, big robber. Many years he lived over there just by robbing people, and he lost all his Brahmanical qualities. One day, many years later, another Brahmana who was from his previous village came there to beg. And he came to this fellow's house. And he saw him. He said, What's wrong with you? What has happened to you? How can you become like this?" And he really gave him a heavy dose on Brahmanical life and this and that. So this Brahmana, this Gautam, felt a little bad. He said, "See, let me just collect little more money and I will retire." So he decided, enough of robbing and all this. I am going to go and make a good amount of money and I'll stop robbing. So thinking like that, he went very far away to a distance place to find some wealth. While he was traveling long distance, he sat under a tree, exhausted after so many days of walking and without eating much. And there he came across a crane, a beautiful looking crane, very effulgent. The crane had a garland around his neck also, And this man was fascinated by this crane. And this Gautam looked at the crane, and the crane started speaking to him. He said, "I live in this tree. This tree is my house. Because you sat under my tree, you are my guest. Tell me what you want. I'll give you anything you want." This Gautam was fascinated by a talking crane. He said, the crane introduced himself. He said, "My name is Rajadharman. And I am a friend of Lord Brahma. Every day I go to meet Lord Brahma in the Satyaloka." This man, he was blown off. He said, I came here searching for money. Can you please help me get a lot of money? I want to stop doing all bad things. Rajadharman said, "Simple. Just go to my friend. Very close by here is a friend of mine whose name is Virupaksha. He's a king of Rakshasas. Just go and tell him my name, Rajadharman, has sent you. He will give you all the money you want." This man became so happy. Gautam ran to the palace of Virupaksha. He met this king of Rakshasas. And Virupaksha asked him, "Rajadharman has sent you." He opened the treasury. He said, "Take whatever you want." This man filled up an entire sack with gold and diamonds and all kinds of wealth, carried this big sack, and he was going back home. On his way, he stopped under the same tree and he met this Rajadharman. And this Rajadharman, he felt very happy that this man has got what he wants. And Rajadharman, he asked him, "How is my friend Virupaksha?" and all that. They had exchanged pleasantries. This man slept for some time there, rested there. And then he was going to go back to his village. Just before he was going to go back to his village, he suddenly had a thought. He thought, "I have a long distance to go. And such a long distance, long journey, I don't know whether I'll get food to eat or no. Better I make some arrangement for my food." He killed this crane. and he took the meat of this crane along with him. And imagine, what a guy. So this Virupaksha Rakshas, he was waiting for his friend Rajadharman to come. So every day this Rajadharman would go to the Satyaloka, to Brahma's planet, and on the way back he would pass through Virupaksha's kingdom and come back to his house. One day he didn't come. So Virupaksha was wondering, what's wrong? The next day also he didn't come. Virupaksha got doubt on this Brahman, Gautam, and he sent his people to follow and figure out where this Gautam is. And they chased him, and they found this Gautam with the meat of this crane. They caught him and brought him back to this kingdom of Rakshasas. And this Virupaksha Rakshas, he said, what kind of a person are you? The person who helped you, you killed him only. And he said, you are not fit for living. He told all the Rakshasas in his kingdom, take this man and throw him in the jungle where the cannibals live, and let the cannibals eat this fellow's flesh. They took this fellow and threw him in the jungle for the cannibals to eat. When the cannibals got to know about this fellow's story, they said, we will not touch him. They said, we eat all types of meat. We eat all types of human beings, except an ungrateful fellow. Ungrateful fellow's meat we don't even touch. The cannibals refused to touch him. And this fellow was brought back to Virupaksha. And Virupaksha told the Rakshasas, I give you all full freedom. You eat him up. No problem. The Rakshasas said, we also don't touch him. And then the Mahabharata says something very, very interesting. It says, Kritagyena sadabhavyam mitra kamena chaivaha. It says that everyone should be grateful and do good to one friend. And then Virupaksha, he realized that anyway, this fellow is useless to the cannibals, he is useless to the Rakshasas. Let us just kill this fellow. So they arranged for they took this fellows along with them to the crematorium, basically. And they arranged for the funeral pyre of this Rajadharman, this crane, basically. And while they set the body of Rajadharman on fire, at that point in time, a Suravi cow from the heaven, she appears and drops a few drops of her divine milk on that fire. And as soon as this few drops of divine milk drops on the fire, Rajadharman comes back to life. This crane comes back to life, completely. And in the meanwhile, this Rakshasas had killed Gautam, this Brahmana, basically. And as soon as Rajadharman gets up, he comes to know about what has happened. And he comes to know that Gautam has been killed. Immediately Rajadharman, he invokes Lord Indra. And he says, oh dear Indra, please revive my friend Gautam. And actually Indra is shocked. He said, what are you saying? This guy killed you and you are saying revive him. Rajadharman says, once I make somebody my friend, I do not betray that person. Virupaksha was amazed. And this Gautam got up. He was amazed. I just killed this person. And he is thinking about so much good for me. So now in context of today's world, where if somebody sends us one WhatsApp message is bad, we can kill that fellow. Isn't it? That's the kind of consciousness that we have. In the context of today's world where we carry so much of hatred in our hearts, we carry so much of negativity in our hearts. Look at this. What an evolved story this is, isn't it? Bhishma is telling through the story in the Mahabharata, he's telling that the worst thing that you can have in your entire life is ungratitude. If somebody has done something good for you, not remembering that's the worst quality you can have in your life. And the best quality you can have in your life is if somebody has done anything little for you. Anything little mean what? Even just offered friendship to you. That's all. You be grateful to that. And for that person, whatever you give back is less. Now, this is the kind of thought processes and stories that Bhishma is sharing with Yudhishthira Maharaj. You can imagine how much nectar and how much of knowledge is filled in that Bhishma Parva, in the Shanti Parva, sorry. I mean, we just spoke 3 stories, isn't it? So this is on how to live life. Now I'm going to share with you all something what Bhishma talks about, how to leave this world. So we spoke about how to live in this world, the idea of being practical, and how to leave this world, how to be absorbed. So Bhishma is a perfect combination of both. Very powerful person and knows everything about life and how to live in this world. But at the same time, very evolved person, very absorbed person, knows what to think and meditate to perfect his life. That combination is very deadly. There are people who are very practical in this world, but they don't care for the spiritual world. And there are people who are so absorbed in the spiritual world, they are not meant for this world only. But here is Bhishma, who is a combination, deadly combination of both. And look at this. So the discussion between Yudhishthira Maharaj and Bhishma is summarized in the Vishnu Sahasranam. So Bhishma, towards the end of his discussion with Yudhishthira Maharaj, Yudhishthira asks him a series of questions. In fact, Yudhishthira asks him 6 questions. These are technically called as Shad Prashni. These are called as Shad Prashni. 6 questions Yudhishthira asks Bhishma. It's almost like a rapid fire, And these 6 questions Yudhishthira asks Bhishma, Bhishma is giving replies. And the 6th replies that Bhishma gives is the foundation of Vishnu Sahasranam. After giving these 6 replies, then Bhishma narrates the entire 1000 names of Lord Vishnu. So let's try to understand what these 6 questions are and try to understand what the 6 replies that Bhishma gives are quickly. So the first question that Yudhishthira asks Bhishma is, Kimekam Devatam Loke. So if any of you all have chanted Vishnu Sahasranam in your life, heard Vishnu Sahasranam, you'll recognize these questions immediately. So these are very much a part of the Vishnu Sahasranam narration. So Yudhishthira begins by asking, Kimekam Devatam Loke. So which is asking, who is the greatest Lord in the world? Bhishma did not even have to think for a moment, and he answered. So let's all chant these words together. Jagat Prabhum Deva Devam Anantam Purushottamam Stuvan Nama Sahasrena Purusha Statatotitaha. So he says, that perfect and infinite being who is the Lord of the universe, the Lord of all the Devas, he is the greatest Lord. And so in this he says, Tuvan Nama Sahasrena Purusha Statatotitaha. That part is an answer to another question that Yudhishthira is going to ask later. The second question Yudhishthira asks is, Kim va pekam parayanam? So he says, who is the one who is a refuge to everybody? The answer to that we can all chant together. Tvameva charchanam nityam bhaktya purusham avyayam dhyayam stuvan namasya yajamanastaveva. So he says that those who worship, meditate and extol and prostrate in front of Purusha, who is avyayam, that means who never changes, and such a person will be freed from all miseries. So Parama Purusha, he is the only one, he is like a boat for all those who are crossing this ocean of life. The third question of Yudhishthira Maharaj is Stuvantakkam. So he says, whose greatness should one extol for attaining a perfection of life? So Bhishma, he answers this. Anadinidanam Vishnu Sarva Loka Maheshwaram Lokadhyaksham Stuvan Nityam Sarva Dukkatijo Bhavet. So he says, Anadinidanam Vishnu Sarva Loka Maheshwaram. He says, whose greatness should one glorify? The person who is who has no beginning and no end, who is omnipresent, who is the Lord of the whole world. The fourth question of Yudhishthira Maharaj is, Kim Archanta? So he says, by worshipping whom can one attain peace and prosperity? And Bhishma answers this question. Tvameva charchanam nityam bhaktya purusham avyayam. Those who worship that Purusha who's beyond avyayam. So, and such a person will attain peace and prosperity. And Yudhishthira Maharaj's fifth question is, Ko dharma sarva dharmanam bhavato paramo mataha. He says, in your opinion, of all dharmas, which is the greatest dharma? And Bhishma answers this. We can chant, Ishame sarva dharmanam dharmo digatamo mataha yad bhaktya pundarikaksham stave rache nara sada. He says, of all dharmas, glorifying by chanting his 1,000 names and worshipping him, who is known as Pundarikaksha, with a great devotion, that is the greatest of all dharmas. And the last question Yudhishthira Maharaj asks is, Kim japan muchyate jantur janma samsara bandhanat. Upon chanting japa of whom can one get liberated from the janma samsara bandhanat? And then Bhishma answers this. Jagat prabhum deva devam anantam purushottamam stuvannama sahasrena purusha sadatoditaha. So here, Bhishma Dev, he emphasizes on the importance of chanting the 1,000 names of Lord Vishnu. And then, Bhishma Dev narrates the 1,000 names of Lord Vishnu, one after another. And of course, the interesting part of this particular narration is that Bhishma Dev is on his deathbed. Last stage of his life. How creative can you be on your deathbed? Have you seen anybody composing poems just before dying? Have you seen anybody composing the best contribution of their lives 1 minute before dying? Most of us, we are either literally invalid or having practically no consciousness at the time of death. Look at what Bhishma has given the world before dying. The Vishnu Sahasranam is such a powerful thing, isn't it? And you will not believe the kind of powers that just chanting the holy names of the Lord has. It's just unbelievable. There is a section in the Ayurveda. I'll just speak this one thing and go ahead. There's a section in the Ayurveda where they talk about different remedies and different solutions to problems and all that. And in the ancient times, there would be maternity homes where they would, deliver babies basically, just maternity homes. They were not hospitals or anything like that, just maternity homes. And it's amazing. In many of these maternity homes, through the whole labor process, they would be chanting Vishnu Sahasranam. And almost all the time, they would have normal deliveries. Simply by chanting Vishnu Sahasranam. If somebody has fever, chanting Vishnu Sahasranam thrice, your fever will go away. These are verses that are there in the Charaka Samhita. These are actual verses that are there that tell you the effects of chanting the holy names of the Lord. So imagine Bhishma contributing something like this before he leaves this world. I mean, I've been studying the Vishnu Sahasranam for like months together now. And I can't tell you the kind of power that is there in every name. And Bhishma has arranged it together in such a smart and such an intelligent way, isn't it? So this is not an ordinary person. This shows his level of absorption. See, if somebody holds you at the gunpoint when you're sleeping and just shakes you up and wakes you up and tells, speak, what will come out from your mouth? Whatever you are absorbed in only will come out, isn't it? Here is someone on his deathbed. Look at what is coming out from his mouth. That's his absorption. And Bhishma, he gives a very beautiful advice to Yudhishthira Maharaj. This is 32. Iti matirupa kalpita vitrishna Bhagavati satvata pungave vibhumni Swasukam upagate kochit vihartum Prakritim upayasi yad bhava pravaha. So now Bhishma Dev has done what he needs to do. He's lived his life. Uttarayan period has come. Krishna is in front of him. He says, now I need to stop. So he tells, let me now, look at the beautiful words that he's using. He says, let me now invest my thinking, feeling and willing, which was so long engaged in so many different subjects and occupational duties, in the all-powerful Lord Shri Krishna. He is always self-satisfied, but sometimes being the leader of the devotees, he enjoys transcendental pleasure by descending into this material world, although from him only the material world is created. So basically, what Bhishma Dev is trying to tell us, the advice that Bhishma Dev is trying to give us is that slowly we must start investing our thinking, willing, and feeling on Krishna. Right now, our thinking, willing, and feeling are on so many subjects, isn't it? Like for example, somebody who is a big cricket fan, all the examples they'll give is cricket only. You tell them, give some example, they'll give you cricket example only. Somebody who's into Bollywood and movies, all examples they'll give from movies only. They invested their thinking, willing, and feeling in that, isn't it? Somebody who's in the stock market, everything they will talk about is from stock market point of view only, because they invested their thinking, willing, and feeling in that. So in our life, all of us have invested our thinking, willing, and feeling in something or other. Somebody could have invested their thinking, willing, and feeling in some dog or some cat. And when they see dog videos and cat videos, all their thinking, willing, and feeling comes out. They get so emotionally surcharged, right? So all of us have some subject matter in which we have invested our thinking, willing, and feeling. So Bhishma Dev, his advice is slowly start shifting it. Start shifting your investment of thinking, willing, and feeling from all material subjects towards Krishna. So that at the end of your life, when you need to disconnect, you can disconnect like that. So you have to prepare your whole life, right? So for Bhishma to speak Vishnu Sahasranam in one go, 1,000 names at one go at the time of death, imagine how much he would have practiced in his life. How much he must have invested in his life, thinking, willing, and feeling there. So all of us, we have such an opportunity to invest our thinking, willing, and feeling in the Lord. ISKCON is like a practice ground. Come here, practice investing at least for an hour, once a week. Come here, practice investing, maybe over a period of time, twice, thrice, You start becoming comfortable in investing and thinking, willing, and feeling in the Lord. And then you can do it on a daily basis at home also, and at every place in the world. There's a very beautiful story that I'd like to share with you all about this thought. Garuda has two wives. Garuda is the bird carrier of the Lord. So the first wife of Garuda, her name is Rudra. And the second wife of Garuda, her name is Sukirti. They both came to Garuda and told him, your beak is too sharp. Very sharp beak you have, And how does your beak become so sharp? So they had a practical question to ask the husband. So he said, I have found a stone on which I go and rub my beak. And because I rub my beak on this stone, my beak has become so sharp. They said, what stone is this? And Garuda said, I rub my beak on the back of Kurmadev. They were shocked. They said, what? Back of Kurmadev? Kurmadev came so many yugas back when the churning of the Mandara ocean was happening. How come, and that incarnation, he came only for that purpose and he left. How come you are going and sharpening your beak on the back of Kurmadev? So Garuda says, what you're saying is right. But the fact that the Lord is gone is wrong. He said, even now Kurmadev is there. And he's there below the Patal Loka. He's holding the 14 planetary systems on his back. And he said, when the Lord experienced the Mandara mountain episode, carried the Mandara mountain on his back and the demigods were churning and the Rakshasas were churning. At that point in time, Kurmadev felt very nice, like a back scratch. Imagine somebody scratching your back, Such a beautiful thing, isn't it? So Kurmadev felt so nice that his back was being scratched by the Mandara mountain. And but after that episode got over, he didn't have anybody to scratch him, So then what he felt, so after he did that, he said, I want to stay here and carry the burden of this world on my back. But once in a while, I go and rub my beaks on the back of Kurmadev. So then the wives of Garuda said, is this right? That you're going and rubbing your beak on the back of Kurmadev to make your beak sharp, Is this not bad? Is it not wrong? Garuda said, I am not going there to beautify my beak. I am going there as service to the Lord. They said, what are you saying? What do you mean by this is service to the Lord? The Garuda said, when the churning was happening and he was feeling that scratching, he missed that scratching after some time. So then he called me one day and he said, please scratch me. And then I used my beak to scratch him. He felt very nice. And then the Lord told me, once in a while you come and scratch me and go. So whenever I have time, I go and do some little scratching and come back. And Garuda said that I scratched the Lord, but by scratching the Lord, my beak is becoming powerful. So which means that whenever we do anything for the Lord, we only get benefited. So it's not that I am doing some service to the Lord, only Lord is benefiting. Never. Whenever we do any service to the Lord, 100% you get something back in return. And that's what makes the service to the Lord very beautiful. And the idea over here is that the kurma that is there below, Mandara is there on top. The churning happens. The Mandara mountain represents our intelligence, buddhi. And the ocean represents all the knowledge in this world. So churning of the ocean represents churning of using your intelligence, you're churning the knowledge of the scriptures. So when you churn the knowledge of the scriptures without kurma below, the Mandara mountain sinks. So there are many authors today who are churning the scriptures. But because they don't have kurma below, they don't have Krishna below, their thoughts are sinking thoughts. Their thoughts don't lead to inspiration. Their thoughts lead to faithlessness. Their thoughts destroy people's faith in God. And halahal wish comes out. But the moment you have kurma below and then you put your intelligence and then churn, nectar will come out. And therefore, Bhishma is highly recommending all of us to invest our thinking, willing and feeling on the Lord. That means use your intelligence, place it on Krishna and then use your intelligence. Nectar will come out. And then Bhishma, he closes his eyes and he remembers one episode in his life, which was a defining episode in Bhishma's life. When the Mahabharata war was going on, Bhishma, he saw Lord Krishna. And there was one particular episode where Krishna tricked Bhishma. If I remember, I told the story of how he sent Arjun to get those 5 arrows from Duryodhan. Bhishma had taken a vow that he'll kill the Pandavas using those 5 arrows. And Krishna tricked Duryodhan and got those 5 arrows back. And Bhishma was really upset with Krishna. And he decided, tomorrow, he made me break my vow, I'm going to make him break his vow. And the next day, Bhishma fought so powerfully, Arjuna and Krishna felt he's going to finish the war today only. At that point of time, Arjuna, he was totally powerless. And Krishna jumped off the chariot, picked up a wheel which was lying on the ground, and made that wheel into Sudarshan Chakra and rushed towards Bhishma to kill him. And when Bhishma saw that, he dropped his bow and arrow. And he just held out his hand like that. And he said, my dear Lord, please come, kill me. And that sight of Krishna running towards him with his hair flowing, his clothes flying, and the dust of the battle falling on Krishna's body, sweating, and Arjun being dragged by Krishna. Arjun was holding Krishna's feet. Krishna was dragging Arjun. That sight Bhishma kept in his mind. And now at this point in time when he was dying, Bhishma, he said, that's the meditation I want to have when I'm dying. That is the one experience I want to hold in my heart when I'm dying. Bhishma is teaching us a very important lesson over here and a very important aspect of life. What is that? The thought that when we die, when we are on the last stage of our life, we should have at least one memory like that in our life that we want to hold on to. The problem with all of us is that we have many experiences spiritually, but we don't hold on to them. We don't make those experiences into memories. We don't preserve those experiences. And it is very, very important, all of us, at least have one such powerful memory in our lives that we can hold on to and make it a part of our being. I'm going to tell you all a very beautiful story, a very short story, but a very beautiful story about this. There was a very exalted devotee of the Lord whose name was Andal. She is a simple girl from South India, but she developed a great desire to marry the Supreme Lord, Krishna. See, she was like, she decided, I'm not going to marry any human being, I only want to marry Krishna. And her father, his name was Periyalvar. The father also was one of the 12 alvars, and the daughter also was one of the 12 alvars. One family, two alvars. Out of the 12 alvars of Sri Sampradaya, two were from one family. So the father felt very bad that his daughter is not able to marry anybody, and Krishna is also not marrying her. So he felt very bad, and he went and prayed to the Lord, and he asked the Lord, "What is this? Why didn't you bless my daughter?" And the Lord told him something very interesting. Through a verse, the Lord told him, "I take care of my devotees even if it is in a dream." He told like that. And the Periyalvar was thinking, what does he mean by that? Now, Periyalvar, that very night, Andal had a dream. And in the dream, Krishna married her. So she became very happy and very confident that surely Krishna is going to marry me. But from this whole story, we learn one very important principle, which is what the Lord is trying to teach us. The principle that we learn is that our dreams are not ordinary. So just like during the daytime, the Lord is protecting us in so many ways, the Lord protects us in our dreams also. How does He protect us? It is explained that when we have bad dreams, actually in our mind we have some bad thoughts sometimes. We think bad about somebody, we do some bad thought, we have some bad thoughts in our mind. So ideally we should get reaction for those bad thoughts also. But the Lord is so kind, He comes and gives us reactions to those bad thoughts in the form of a bad dream. And in the dream you get scared, right? That's the reaction. Oh yeah, the thought is nullified. The reaction is nullified. And when you do some good karma, and in your mind only, you get some good dreams. And that is the reaction that you get for the good that you have done. The idea that Bhishma is trying to teach us over here through this particular section of this of the Bhagavatam is that each of us should have one memory that becomes so much a part of us that we actually start dreaming about it. The quality of dreams that you have indicate a lot about the quality of consciousness that you have. So please make such powerful memories in your life, spiritual memories, that they become so much a part of you that you actually start dreaming it. And it will happen. It will happen. Especially yatras and spiritual experiences that you have, these are very powerful memories that get etched in your mind forever. And the last thing that Bhishma leaves us with is a very, very beautiful meditation, which is the last thing that we'll speak today. When Bhishma was dying, in front of him were three people: Draupadi, Yudhishthir, and Krishna. And these three people represent three things that were going on in Bhishma's mind while he was in the last part of his life. Draupadi represents all the mistakes that he made in his life. Draupadi was the one person that Bhishma didn't help during the Asat Sabha. She asked him so many questions. Draupadi asked him, "You are talking big things today about dharma, Raja Dharma, Kula Dharma, Sri Dharma and all that. That day I asked you, what is dharma? You didn't answer." Draupadi asked him. That day, in the court, she asked him, "What is dharma?" Bhishma said, "Dharma is a very complicated subject, very difficult to answer." He didn't answer that day. So Draupadi asked him, "How come you are giving big lecture today?" Bhishma said, "That day I had blood in my body which was filled with the food that Duryodhana had fed me. And therefore I could not answer all this. And your husband Arjuna has taken out all the blood with his arrows. Now I don't have any bad blood in my body. Now I can speak about Dharma Vindas, And when Draupadi came in front of Bhishma, he really started crying. He said, Draupadi represents the repentance that Bhishma had in his life. And when Yudhishthira came in front of him, gorgeously dressed as a king, Bhishma felt really good. He said, because this is his aspiration from his life. He always wanted someone stable who is follower of Dharma sitting on that throne. He lived his entire life for putting the right person on the throne only. Seeing Yudhishthira dressed gorgeously, he said, I am satisfied. Now I can die peacefully because the throne is in safe hands. And the last thing that Bhishma saw was Lord Krishna. And Krishna represents gratitude. So he said, no matter what I have done in my body, in my Atma, the level of the Atma, I have lived a life of pure devotion. Krishna, he punished Bhishma for what he did with his body. The body is dead, lying there, with so many arrows. But still, Krishna did not forget the devotion that Bhishma did. And for that, Krishna personally was standing there right in front of him. And Bhishma expressed gratitude for that. So when we are on our deathbed, these are three things that we need to keep in our mind. Repentance for all the mistakes that we have done in our life, whatever small, big it may be. And we should actually seek forgiveness from all those whom we have offended. And second is satisfaction that I've done something good today, good in my life, the last phase of my life. I've done something valuable for society and I can die peacefully. And the third thing is gratitude to the Lord for we not deserving it, but still Krishna giving us so much. Of course, every day when we go to sleep, sleep is like mini death. If we can do these three things every night before we go to sleep, at the time of death, we'll easily be able to do it. So let us thank Bhishma Dev for being such a glorious Mahajan and for the amazing insights that he gave us through this beautiful narration of Srimad Bhagavatam. And hopefully some of these 6 things that we just discussed today, we can implement it in our life and hopefully perfect our lives. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.